In this video, we'll be building LEGO Technic set 42177, the Mercedes-Benz G 500 professional line. This set has 2,891 pieces and retails in the US for $249.99. I like the color and I'm looking forward to it, so let's get started. Okay, so hopefully you're still with me. I know this video is taking quite a while, but this is LEGO Technic Set 42177, the Mercedes-Benz G500 professional line. This set actually came out last year, and it retails for I believe it's $199 in the US, and comes with 2,891 pieces. I did see this built by another creator, Brick Easy, on YouTube. And I was kind of inspired to build it. This is a really nice set. It took a while to build, but it was a lot of fun to build and definitely very intricate with the details as well as the gearbox. So in this case, in this set, some of the cool features here, all 4 doors do open. On each side, these actually are locking sides, handles that do open. I think it opens on both sides that way. There is a functional steering wheel here that does turn the front wheels, but there's also a top knob to turn the wheels in the front. There is in the front, as you can see, you can open up the hood. This is the engine. Basically, just the engine blocks at the top. Underneath here, there are 6 pistons, yellow pistons, like they do with a lot of the other Technic sets. It's too bad they didn't. I mean, it's a cool little feature with a little sticker here, but I wish they had almost kept the pistons there. There are 2 kind of makeshift windshield wipers here in the front, which is a nice little feature. I haven't seen that before. And then inside the car, it's kind of hard to see, but there is actually like kind of a shifting gear. There's a high-low gear as well as a front drive and rear. So, I mean, if you're driving it rear, I can't see very well in front here, but basically there's 2 shifters. The transmission you build out has a high gear and a low gear, as well as a reverse drive and neutral in this case, which was really fun to build. I wish they didn't put the controls so far behind the inside the drive there. And the back here, turning around to the back. So this is a cool little feature here. This is the back spare tire that does come off on the back here. The back does open as well to reveal the trunk. But there is a way for you to swap this out, so you could, if you wanted to, instead of having just the wheel, you could also build the actual back of the little bracket here for the back. And you just have to swap out this yellow with this one. And then you attach the bracket, and that's pretty much it. So it's a nice little alternative. And there's also at the top, there's a little compartment up here for the spare pieces for the back bracket. Other than that, there's 2 sticker license plates here down at the bottom, as well as on the front here as well. As you can see, there is a printed sticker here in the front, which is for the Mercedes-Benz. There's a little Mercedes-Benz logo, but I'll get into the stickers in a minute. Again, just kind of opening up the sides here. So, I mean, the back it's a pretty cool design. You have the black and the gray seats, as well as the front seats, which are cool. They have the little the side panels here that do kind of rotate forward. I like the way they design those seats. They're a little different from, what you see oftentimes with other Technic sets. But other than that, I'd say this is a really nice set, and I had a lot of fun building it. Like I said, it did take quite a while, but I had a lot of fun putting it together. It does have some pretty cool shocks on both sides of this car. So the front, and then again at the back here as well. But for, whatever it is, 289 pieces, I think I said, I'll be sure to correct it in the review, but I think it was $199. I think it was $199.99 in the US. So I'll double check before I put the video up. But yeah, this was a lot of fun to build. It was pretty cool, and I highly recommend this for anyone. There's also at the top here, there's a little sunroof that you can kind of move over down. I would say that the build was a good build. There were times when I was a little frustrated. I felt like there's parts of this build that just kind of it just seemed like kind of difficult. Like they'd make you put pieces in well after they were supposed to go in. Sometimes it was even a lot of fun, and I love the color too. I love the orange and the black. I think they've done a really nice job picking the appropriate color here for that. So if you're a Technic fan, I would highly recommend this. If you haven't already picked this up, I would definitely recommend picking this one up. It's a lot of fun. just to show you the bottom here. So this is the gearbox. As you can see, it's a pretty intricate gearbox that rotates, pretty much just all connected from the rear, the rear shaft all the way up to the middle, and then the front. The front does turn as well, but it's pretty intricate to build out the gearbox, which I do like. A lot of these Lego sets, these Technic sets, they build out the gearbox. It's pretty intricate, and I do enjoy that. I feel like it's kind of a challenge to put it together to make sure that you've put it together and that it works before you continue forward. So that was something that I really enjoyed putting together, especially in these larger sets. So there are 2 instruction manuals in this set. This is the first one. There's a nice picture here on the front of just the front of the set. And then again on the second one, there's also a kind of a front piece. I do like this set, but this is from the side. But it does talk a little bit about the car. There's 2 nice pictures here of the Lego set, as well as then the actual car itself. There's a little more roundedness to this. Obviously, it's hard to... And it talks again about how long this car has been used, 45 years. Talks a little bit about the Lego set. And then it also talks about the long-lasting value. So, I mean, it starts, all the way back from the 80s, goes all the way through, 2018, which is the Mercedes G3. I know it seems a little old. I think 2018 is now 7 years old, so I don't know exactly. And then it talks a little bit about the icon of the car, and then there's a picture here of the designer who put it together. So again, like I said, it was a really nice car. I think, the build itself really made this car very interesting to build. And then, of course, that gets right into the build. There aren't too many stickers on this set, which is a nice feature. Usually with these big sets, they do come with a lot of stickers, and I was surprised to find there was only a handful here, so I think that was nice. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this build, and again, if you did, I'd appreciate you clicking on like and subscribe. And once again, I appreciate your support, and thanks for watching.